All right, ready to dive into Atomic Habits with James Clear.
Sounds good.
We've all been there,
Yeah.
right? Like setting these huge goals and then, falling back into those same old routines a few weeks later.
Oh, yeah?
But this book, it takes a different approach.
Hmm.
It's all about those tiny changes, those little tweaks that over time can actually lead to like really remarkable results. It's kind of wild.
And what I find really fascinating about this book is it kind of shifts that whole focus,
Hmm.
from just setting these like big goals to actually like building systems.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
a whole different way of thinking about it.
totally.
You might have a goal of like, I don't know, losing weight,
Yeah,
but the system is like that
yeah,
set of daily habits that will actually get you there.
yeah,
Meal planning or consistent exercise,
yeah.
mindful eating, all that good stuff.
The book actually says forget about goals, focus on systems instead,
Right.
which at first sounds a bit counterintuitive.
Yeah, a little bit.
So, like, help me understand that. Why are systems so important?
Well, if you're just like laser focused on that end goal, it's super easy to get discouraged when progress seems slow,
Oh, well,
you
yeah.
know? But when you've got a system in place, a series of small, like repeatable actions,
Hmm.
you're actually building that momentum, even when you don't see those like crazy drastic changes immediately.
So it's about the long game, right?
Yeah,
Establishing habits that, like, over time will compound and lead to those bigger transformations.
exactly.
The book refers to these tiny actions as atomic habits.
Right.
Could you break that down for us? What exactly are we talking about here?
Think about it this way. Instead of vaguely saying, I want to read more,
Mm-hmm.
you'd like establish a super concrete habit. Like, I'm going to read one page every day at 6 a.m. in my favorite chair.
Okay.
Sounds ridiculously simple,
Yeah.
but that's kind of where the power lies.
I love that it's about making those habits so small and manageable that they become like almost impossible to resist.
Yeah.
But how do these habits actually form in the first place? I mean, both good and bad.
Ooh, that's a good question.
The book talks about this thing called a habit loop, right?
Yes, exactly.
What is that all about?
So the habit loop, it's basically a cycle of cue, craving, response, and reward.
Okay.
So let's take like the classic example of your phone buzzing with a notification.
Uh-huh.
Okay, the buzz is like your cue.
Right.
It, triggers this craving to see what's happening. Your response is to check your phone.
Hmm.
And the reward is satisfying that curiosity, even if it's just for like a fleeting moment.
Right. And it's so relatable. We've all been there, right? Feeling that like almost irresistible urge to check our phones, even when we know we probably should be focusing on something else.
Yeah, we're all guilty of that.
So how does dopamine, the feel-good chemical, factor into this whole habit loop thing?
So dopamine plays a like super crucial role in reinforcing those habits.
Right.
It's not just about the reward itself, it's the anticipation of it
Uh-huh.
that triggers that like rush of dopamine. So, think about that phone buzzing again, that
Yeah.
like rush of dopamine.
Yeah.
That kind of hits before you even know what the notification's about.
It's like our brains are wired to just seek out those dopamine hits, even if like the reward itself is ultimately pretty insignificant.
Right.
So the good news is this book gives us a framework, for understanding and actually changing our habits, both good and bad.
Yeah.
And it lays out these 4 laws for making those changes actually stick.
Mm-hmm.
Let's dive into those.
Sounds good.
So what's the first law?
The first law is all about making the habit obvious.
Okay.
And this is where designing your environment really comes into play.
Mm-hmm.
So think about like putting visual cues around to, kind of trigger those desired behaviors, like leaving a water bottle out if you want to, I don't know, drink more water.
Yeah, I love that. It's like giving yourself those like little nudges throughout the day.
Exactly.
And like conversely, to break a bad habit, you make it invisible. Or like, I don't know, putting your phone in another room when you're trying to focus.
Yeah, exactly.
But the key here is to like become aware of those ingrained habits, right?
Yeah.
Before you can even start changing them.
Right.
The book suggests creating like a habit scorecard
Oh, yeah.
where you track your daily behaviors from the moment you wake up to when you go to bed.
Yeah.
And then you categorize each habit as, positive, negative, or neutral.
Right.
That sounds like a great way to get like a clear picture of what's actually going on in your day-to-day life.
Yeah, it's a really useful tool.
Okay, so let's say you've identified those habits that you actually want to change.
Uh-huh.
Like, how do you make those positive habits actually stick?
That's where the second law comes in. Make it attractive.
Okay.
And one technique the book suggests is temptation bundling.
Okay.
It's basically pairing something you need to do with something you actually want to do.
Yeah.
For example, you could only allow yourself to watch your, I don't know, your favorite TV show while working out.
That's clever. It's like making those less desirable tasks like a little more appealing.
Exactly, exactly.
But sometimes even bundling something enjoyable just isn't enough to like overcome that initial resistance.
I know what you mean.
Like, I don't know, starting a new workout routine can feel really daunting, right?
Oh, yeah.
How do you deal with that?
Well, that's where the third law comes in. Make it easy.
All right.
So the book introduces this really cool idea called the 2-minute rule.
Okay.
It's all about overcoming procrastination by just like starting ridiculously small.
Okay.
So instead of aiming for that full workout,
Mm-hmm.
you just focus on putting on your running shoes
Uh-huh.
for like 2 minutes.
Okay.
The key is just to like get started and build momentum from there.
Yeah, I like that. It's like making that initial step so simple that you like can't help but do it.
Yeah.
So you've got your shoes on. How do you make sure you actually keep going beyond those 2 minutes?
Right. So that brings us to the final law. Make it satisfying.
All right. What's that all about?
This is all about like rewarding yourself
Uh-huh.
in a way that actually reinforces that habit.
Okay.
So the book suggests using like visual trackers,
Okay.
like, I don't know, moving marbles from one jar to another as you complete tasks.
Yeah.
It just gives you that like sense of accomplishment.
Yeah.
And it makes the whole process a bit more tangible.
That's a great idea. The book also mentions like creating a habit contract
Yeah.
where you outline like the consequences
Right.
for not sticking to your habits and, finding an accountability partner to like help you stay on track.
Oh, yeah. Accountability is huge.
Really important, right?
Yeah.
So you've got these 4 laws, but it's interesting. The book like goes beyond just outlining these principles, right?
Yeah.
It gives you an actual case study, like a real world example of how to put these ideas into practice.
Yes, it does.
So tell me about that.
So the case study follows this individual who's trying to like establish a consistent workout routine
Mm-hmm.
and, a reading habit while also trying to reduce their social media consumption.
Okay, interesting.
It, really highlights the importance of starting with that habit scorecard
Mm-hmm.
we talked about earlier, right?
Right.
By understanding their existing routines, they were able to identify like those triggers
Okay.
for those new desired behaviors.
So they use their like existing habits as like a foundation to build those new ones.
Exactly.
That's really practical.
It is.
Did they give any specific examples of how they did that?
Sure. For instance, they made coffee a trigger for reading.
Oh, wow.
They established this like habit stack, as they call it in the book.
Mm-hmm.
After making coffee, I will read for 90 minutes.
Oh, I see.
By linking that, already enjoyable activity with the desired habit, they were able to like leverage that existing dopamine spike, associated with that coffee
Right.
to actually reinforce the reading routine.
That's so clever. It's like hijacking those existing reward mechanisms in your brain.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm gonna have to try that.
You should.
The case study also emphasizes like designing your environment to actually support your habits, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So what did they do?
So they adopted this one space, one use rule,
Okay.
designating like their balcony as their dedicated reading zone.
Oh, I see.
So that helped create like a clear mental association between that physical space
Right.
and that desired activity.
Creating those like spatial boundaries. Yeah, I can see how that would be super helpful.
Mm-hmm.
But what about breaking bad habits? Did the case study address that at all?
Yes, they used these principles to reduce social media consumption.
Okay.
They started by, making their phone like less appealing,
Uh-huh.
deleting distracting apps,
Uh-huh.
and using a technique called reprogramming,
Mm-hmm.
where they would like remind themselves of the negative aspects of excessive social media use.
Okay. Yeah.
Framing it as a like passive consumption habit.
So it's about shifting your mindset.
Right.
And like highlighting those downsides of that unwanted behavior.
Exactly.
I like that. This case study provides like a multifaceted approach.
Yeah.
Right? Addressing both the physical and the psychological aspects of habit change.
Mm-hmm.
Really interesting.
So they also implemented strategies to increase friction,
Okay.
making it harder to engage in the undesired habit.
Okay.
For example, they would like leave their phone in a drawer
Mm-hmm.
in another room, like while working.
Yeah.
Just creating that physical barrier to like that mindless scrolling.
Yeah. It's amazing how those like small environmental adjustments can have like a significant impact on your behavior. And the case study also mentions like using an accountability partner.
Yes, they enlisted their partner to, uh, to help enforce that social media reduction goal.
Uh-huh.
So if they were caught using social media during like work time, they had to pay like a small fine.
Oh, wow.
So it added that element of like immediate consequence, making it less satisfying to engage in that unwanted habit.
I see. So combining like these different strategies, you're creating a more robust system for habit change.
Exactly. Yeah.
But let's be real, even with the best systems, we all slip up sometimes.
It happens.
Does the case study offer like any advice for those times when we inevitably have those setbacks?
Absolutely. It emphasizes the importance of like not letting one slip up derail your entire progress.
Right.
They advocate for this idea of never missing twice.
Okay.
So if you miss a day, don't beat yourself up about it.
Sure.
Just, get back on track the next day.
Yeah, yeah.
It's about consistency, not perfection.
That's such a reassuring message.
Right.
It's about recognizing that, setbacks are just like a natural part of the process.
Exactly.
But okay, so how do these like small changes actually translate into significant long-term results?
Okay.
The book mentions this idea of compounding, right?
Yes. It highlights the power of like small improvements accumulating over time.
Okay.
Imagine this. 1% better every day, right? For a year.
Okay.
That compounds to nearly 38 times better.
Wow.
Conversely, 1% worse every day for a year. That brings you close to zero.
Okay.
So the point is, patience is like super key here.
Right.
The most powerful outcomes of like any compounding process, they're delayed.
That's a powerful reminder that consistency over time is what ultimately leads to like meaningful change.
Yeah.
It's not about those like overnight transformations,
Right.
but showing up each day
Yeah.
and making those small incremental improvements. So this whole deep dive has been so insightful. We've unpacked the habit loop, explored the 4 laws of, behavior change. We've even delved into that practical case study.
Yeah.
What I find particularly intriguing is the emphasis on identity.
Yeah.
The book suggests, focusing on the person you want to become, not just the like goal you want to achieve.
Absolutely.
Why is that so important?
It's all about like aligning your actions with your desired identity.
Okay.
If you want to be a runner,
Uh-huh.
you start acting like a runner.
Okay.
Even if it's just putting on your shoes and walking for, a few minutes each day.
Right.
Eventually, those actions will shape your beliefs about yourself. And the habit will like become ingrained.
So it's not about like brute willpower or forcing yourself to do something you hate.
Right.
It's about becoming the type of person
Yeah.
who naturally does those things because it aligns with who you are, at your core.
Exactly.
It's like creating a self-reinforcing cycle, right? Your actions reinforce your identity.
Yeah.
And your identity reinforces your actions. This concept of like atomic habits and their impact on our identity is it's fascinating.
Yeah, it is.
It makes you realize like how much control we actually have over shaping our own lives, even if it's through these like seemingly insignificant daily actions.
That's the amazing thing. Those little things add up.
They really do.
Yeah.
And what's even more remarkable is that this like applies to all areas of our lives.
Right.
Not just personal goals, but also relationships, work, communities.
Absolutely.
Like imagine the impact if we all consciously applied these principles,
Yeah.
to create like these positive ripple effects in the world around us.
Insanely amazing.
That's an inspiring thought. It really highlights the potential of these like seemingly small changes to create a collective like positive impact.
It does.
And as we move forward in our deep dive, here's a question to ponder. What small atomic habits could you start incorporating into your life today to move you closer to the person you want to become? And what tiny changes could you make to your environment to like support those habits and make them like more likely to stick?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a really good question to consider. And, it actually ties in perfectly with another key concept from the book, the importance of tracking our progress.
Oh, yeah. I'm all about tracking progress. It's so motivating to like see those small wins just add up over time.
For sure.
The book mentions using like visual measures, right? To make that that progress more tangible.
Exactly. Think back to those like old school sticker charts
Oh,
we
yeah.
used to get as kids.
Yes,
There's something like inherently satisfying about seeing those stickers accumulate.
totally.
And the book suggests like similar techniques for adults, using these like paper clips or marbles or even just, marking off days on a calendar.
I love that idea. It's so simple,
Yeah.
but like effective. Way to create a visual representation of your efforts. Like if
Wow.
you're trying to build a writing habit, you could, I don't know, move a marble from one jar to another for every page you write.
Exactly. And that act of like physically moving those objects, it becomes like a mini reward in itself.
Oh, yeah.
It gives you that sense of accomplishment and reinforces that positive behavior.
Yeah, I'm a very visual person, so I can definitely see how that would be like incredibly motivating.
For sure.
But what about those times when we like inevitably slip up?
Oh, yeah.
You know, life gets in the way, we get busy, we lose momentum.
It happens.
Does the book offer any guidance on like how to get back on track?
It absolutely does. The book
Mm.
emphasizes the importance of what it calls habit recovery.
Okay.
It acknowledges that setbacks are just a normal part of the process.
Yeah.
And the key is to like minimize the damage
Yeah.
and get back on track as quickly as possible.
So it's not about beating yourself up for like missing a day or two. It's about recognizing that like perfection isn't the goal.
Right.
Consistency is.
Exactly. And the book even suggests having like a plan in place for those times when you'll like face challenges.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, like for example, if you're traveling and you won't have access to, I don't know, your usual workout routine,
Mm-hmm.
you could, pack some resistance bands or like research local hiking trails or something like that.
That's so practical. It's about being proactive and like anticipating those potential roadblocks.
Right.
But what I find so fascinating is that the book like doesn't just focus on individual habits.
Uh-huh.
It also talks about the impact of our environment
Oh, yeah,
on our
yeah.
behavior.
Absolutely
Yeah.
interesting. It highlights the importance of what it calls habit design.
Okay.
And it argues that we can like make it easier to build good habits
Mm-hmm.
and break bad ones
Yeah.
by strategically shaping our surroundings.
So like if you're trying to eat healthier, you could, I don't know, remove unhealthy snacks from your pantry
Right.
and replace them with like fruits and vegetables.
okay.
Or if you're trying to be more productive, you could create a dedicated workspace that's free from distractions.
Absolutely. Our environment can either support or sabotage our efforts.
Wow, that's really powerful.
It is.
So by consciously designing our surroundings
Yeah.
to align with our desired habits, we can make it much easier to achieve our goals.
I agree.
It's like setting yourself up for success.
It is.
But what about those habits that are just like really hard to break? The ones that like almost feel addictive?
I know what you mean.
The book delves into that a little bit, talking about the role of dopamine and
Right.
how it can like make certain behaviors like so incredibly compelling.
Yeah, dopamine, that neurotransmitter is associated with like pleasure and reward. It plays like a key role in habit formation. So when we engage in, a behavior that releases dopamine, our brain learns to like crave that feeling and seeks it out again.
So like when we get a notification on our phone, our brain releases a little bit of dopamine,
Yeah.
making us want to check it.
Exactly.
And then the more we check it, the stronger that association becomes, making it like harder and harder to resist.
That's exactly how it works.
Yeah.
And it can be a slippery slope.
Yeah, so it's crucial to be mindful of like the habits that we're forming
Yeah.
and those dopamine loops that we're creating.
Exactly.
Right, we need to be intentional about choosing behaviors that are truly rewarding and fulfilling rather than those that like just provide that quick hit of dopamine.
I agree. It's not about depriving ourselves of pleasure.
Right.
It's about choosing sources of pleasure that align with our values and long-term goals.
I like that. And what I find fascinating is that the book actually suggests that we can like hack these dopamine loops to our advantage.
We can, and the book introduces this really cool concept called temptation bundling,
Okay.
which involves pairing something we need to do with something we actually want to do.
Okay.
So for example, if you want to make exercise more appealing, you could only allow yourself to watch like your favorite TV show
Mm-hmm.
while working out.
That's brilliant. It's like tricking our brains into associating something we might not like normally enjoy with
Right.
something we genuinely like look forward to.
Exactly.
And by doing that repeatedly, we can start to like rewire our brains and actually find pleasure in the activity itself.
It's all about leveraging those existing reward pathways in our brains to make positive habits more appealing.
Another powerful concept the book highlights is the importance of celebrating small wins.
Yes, I love that concept.
We often get so caught up in focusing on that end goal that we forget to acknowledge all the progress we're making along the way.
It's so important to give ourselves credit for those small victories,
Yeah.
those moments when we choose the healthier option, the productive task, the kind gesture.
Hmm.
Like every step forward, no matter how small, it's a win worth celebrating.
I love that. And, celebrating those wins, it releases more dopamine, right?
And it does.
Further reinforcing that positive behavior
Yeah,
and creating this positive feedback loop that helps us build momentum and stay motivated.
absolutely.
I love it. But beyond individual motivation, the book also highlights the impact of social influence on our habits.
Oh, for sure.
Right. Yeah.
Our habits are not just shaped by our internal motivations,
Right.
but also by the people around us.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah, and the book points out that we're highly influenced by the norms and behaviors of our social groups.
So if you want to start running,
Yeah.
joining a running club, or finding a running buddy could be a great way to increase your chances of success.
Exactly. And on the flip side, if you want to break a bad habit, it can be helpful to, distance yourself from people
Right.
who engage in that behavior.
It's all about creating that supportive environment, right?
Yeah.
That reinforces the habits you want to build and discourages the ones you want to break.
I agree.
But what about those times when you feel like you've tried everything
Mm-hmm.
and you're still struggling to change?
Yeah.
Does the book offer any hope for those who feel
Absolutely. It
Oh.
emphasizes that even small changes can make a big difference over time.
Yeah.
It uses, a compelling analogy
Okay.
to illustrate the power of compounding.
Mm.
If we improve by just 1% each day
Uh-huh.
over the course of the year,
Yeah.
we'll be 37 times better than we were at the beginning.
That's incredible. It's a reminder that progress is often slow and gradual,
Yeah.
but with consistency and patience, we can achieve remarkable results.
Slow.
The book also highlights the importance of focusing on our identity, right?
Yes. It argues that lasting change comes from shifting our beliefs about who we are.
Oh, interesting.
Instead of saying, I'm trying to quit smoking,
Right.
we should say, I'm a non-smoker.
I see. So it's about aligning our actions with our desired identity,
Right.
creating a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yes.
We start to believe we're capable of change,
Uh-huh.
and that belief fuels our actions.
Exactly. It's about embodying that identity,
Mm-hmm.
even if it feels a bit, uncomfortable or unfamiliar at first.
This whole conversation has been so eye-opening.
I'm glad.
It's not just about willpower or discipline. It's
No.
about understanding the science of habit formation and using those principles to our advantage.
Exactly.
What I find particularly empowering is the realization that we have more control over our habits than we often realize.
Absolutely.
By making small changes to our environment,
Yeah.
our routines, our beliefs, we can create a life that's truly aligned with our values and aspirations.
I agree.
This deep dive has given me a whole new perspective on personal growth.
That's great.
It's not about those overnight transformations
Mhm.
or radical overhauls.
Yeah.
It's about those small atomic habits
Uh-huh.
that compound over time to create a life that's truly extraordinary.
I love that.
And remember, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
So true.
So start today, no matter how small that step may seem.
Yeah. Good advice.
That's a great reminder. And as the book emphasizes, it's not about striving for perfection.
Mhm.
It's about progress, consistency, and celebrating those small wins along the way.
For sure.
And as we continue exploring these ideas, here's a question to consider. How can you leverage the power of social influence to support your habit building journey? Are there communities you could join, people you could connect with, or even role models you could look to for inspiration?
Those are all great ideas.
That's such a good point,
Okay.
surrounding yourself with the right people, it can make all the difference.
Oh, yeah.
It's like that saying, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Mm-hmm.
But something that really struck me in the book was this idea that our habits are essentially modern day solutions
Uh-huh.
to these ancient desires.
Oh, yeah.
So interesting.
It's fascinating, isn't it? The book argues that our brains haven't really evolved that much
Hmm.
over thousands of years.
Right.
Like we still have those primal instincts
Right.
and motivations
Yeah.
that drove, our ancestors.
So like our craving for, I don't know, sugary foods,
Right.
which might seem like a modern day indulgence,
Yeah.
it's actually linked to our ancestors' need to like seek out those high calorie foods
Right.
for survival. And
Exactly.
like our obsession with social media,
Mm.
with like all the likes and the notifications, it can be seen as like a way of satisfying our like innate need
Uh-huh.
for social connection and status.
That's right.
It's amazing how those ancient drives are like still playing out
Yeah.
in our like modern lives, even in ways that like seem completely unrelated.
Right.
What I find like empowering about this perspective is that it gives us this like framework
Yeah.
for understanding our habits and like making those more like conscious choices.
It got it.
So instead of trying to like completely eliminate our desire for, I don't know, sweet treats,
Right.
we could find healthier ways to satisfy that craving.
Right.
Like, choosing fruits or, I don't know, naturally sweetened desserts.
Exactly.
And instead of like mindlessly scrolling through social media,
Yeah.
we could find more like fulfilling ways to connect with others.
Right.
Like, having those meaningful conversations or, pursuing shared interests.
That's a much better way to go about it.
This whole conversation has been so insightful. It's given me a whole new perspective on like the power of habits
Mm-hmm.
and like the potential we all have to create positive change.
It's amazing what we can do when we really put our minds to it.
It really is. The journey of habit change, it isn't always easy,
Yeah.
but it is incredibly rewarding.
It is.
By like applying these principles with consistency and patience, you can transform your life in ways you never thought possible.
Oh, that's true. I completely agree.
And to everyone listening out there, you have the power within you
Yeah.
to shape your habits and create the life that you desire. It all starts with one small step.
Absolutely.